Welcome everybody, my name's Viper King. I'm going to be going over 5 pro tips to make your time in ESO's PvP a lot smoother in both Cyrodiil and Battlegrounds. Before we get started, just a quick overview. Number 1 is going to be zoom options. Number 2, select targeting. Number 3, I'm going to touch up on light attack combo weaving. Number 4 is going to be simple combo fallback in Cyrodiil when it slows down and gets laggy. And then last is going to be gap closers and stun timing. Alright, now first up we're going to go ahead and look at zoom options. Right there in the first clip you can see it's not so bad, pretty nice and zoomed out, but then right here is way too close. And I'm looking like straight into the back of my head, way too zoomed in. Now you want to back it out a little bit so that way you can see your peripheral, right? You can see if someone's behind you and they're just following you and hitting you in the back constantly. You won't even see that right now. Next up's going to be a little bit more complex. There's plenty of times when you roll in there and you don't really know what you're doing, or at least not what your first move is going to be. There's 4 or 5 people in front of you. They're all rolling together. They can be real close together, kind of spread out, and it just takes a little bit of time to take that like situational analysis to be able to figure out what exactly you want to do. My recommendation is to first start with the healer. Once the healer is down, granted a lot of them are really tanky and PvP, so they do take a little bit of extra persuasion. Once you get down the healer, then the rest of the group starts to falter a little bit, right? They're losing a lot of healing, obviously, and then a lot of healers run support sets and things like that, so they're losing damage or resistance, things like that. And then right after them is going to be a DPS. So smoke the healer and then go right to the DPS. Right, pretty easy to see. You can pan out across all your guys and then kind of see how much health they all have. And then anybody lower than 30k is usually going to be a pretty soft DPS that you can burn down pretty quick. Moving on to tanks, we're going to look at, they're going to be the last to kill, obviously. They'll have 30 plus K health, 35k plus resistance in both fields, and then compared to DPSs, they're going to have maxed out on health and resistance, right? Whereas a DPS might only have high health and low resistance for high resistance and low health. Next we're going to be looking at how to weave in your light attacks, right? Very basic, simple function. You're going to want to make sure that you're constantly doing a move, tapping that trigger, doing a move, tapping the trigger, and then keep those light attacks going out because it gives you a soft buffer when you're using a move that consumes your stamina or magic, and then allows you to keep fighting and still putting out damage while not taking up more resources. So it's very ideal and helps you a lot. Alrighty, y'all. Last on the list is gap closers and stun time. These are pretty important. Knowing when to use your gap closer and when to stun the enemy is really important because you don't want to rush in there right away and then get surrounded and swallowed up. And then you don't want to stun your enemy right away because then they just break free and then you kind of just wasted your stun. You can only stun somebody every 6 seconds, so that gives them, a knowledgeable player, 6 seconds to beat you up without being interrupted by anything, except for a snare, which would just slow them down. And then I talk about stuns and snares in depth on my other clip, and the times and everything like that for those. But for this, we're just going to go ahead and say when exactly you're supposed to run the snare, or the stun. And basically what happens is, when you're fighting them, you're going to want to try to get them down to about 50%, maybe a little lower, somewhere around 40%, and then stun them. You can stun them anywhere in between that if it's taking a long time to fight them too. Like if you're fighting and fighting and fighting, you don't think you're going to get them down to 50% relatively quickly, you can stun them, get them down to 50%, keep them on the back foot until you can stun them again, and then you can drop your Exe on them. It'll be a nice clean kill.
because most of the time you get them down into that execute phase where a lot of your execute moves where they do more damage once the person's lower on health, those will start to kick in a lot harder, and that last little bit of health, unless they're a vampire and they got resistances at the bottom of their health hit, then they'll die pretty fast. Alright everybody, that's the end of the clip for the most part. I'm going to do a second video following this one that's going to be covering Cyrodiil PvP exclusively, and then cover Siege and breaking through the walls and taking on the Zergs out there in the fields and things like that. We'll cover all that. The rest of the clip's just going to bleed out, and you can enjoy the brag clip or you can watch the next one. It's all up to you. Please like, favorite, and subscribe, and I appreciate you supporting me.
Relic tight! We captured